So, Moshe David, should we start from the Mishnah or should we start from talking?
Well, the Mishnah approaches has in it different topics, basically of definitions. We're not used to so much definitions, especially in Pirkei Avot. So I'd actually like to suggest, I'd like to ask you, and we'll start from that, and then we can have a conversation, and then we'll see the Mishnah. But I want to ask you, if we would try to define, with, if anyone knows the answer from the Mishnah, then don't give us the answer from the Mishnah. If we were to ask today in the modern day world that we live in, what
Not in modern, in your understanding, in your personal understanding.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go for that. What does it mean if someone says to you, that is a wise person? What is wisdom? And what does it mean to be a wise person? How would that be defined? That's an open question, and we'd love to hear any answers, any thoughts. When you say the word wise, wisdom, what does it actually mean?
Moshe David, let's say, think for 10, 20 seconds. It doesn't have to be the best answer, but like, what's your automatically, what you thought immediately, and write in the, maybe in the chat, how do you understand wisdom? We never tried this before, so try to go with the flow and let's see where it takes us.
Okay. Okay, I try.
Nice. Yeah, we said we write in the chat, but if you want to say,
okay. No.
If it's too complicated, you can say it out loud.
No. Okay. No, you want to chat? I try to chat. Why not? Yeah, I'm not expert here.
There are more people here. We only got 5 answers. Come on.
Yeah, take another.
We'll give you.
You can't write chokhmah. Chokhmah is just a translation of the word wisdom. That's what this is our question.
Take the other pupils, because
no, I said to Dan because you wrote chokhmah.
Yeah, I don't like the chat, but
Okay, so Yeta, why don't you begin, and you can just say it, what you think. What is wisdom for you?
Yeah, I think in my universe and future, I think Torah's to be wisdom, to get knowledge, is to understand every Jews and everything in the religion in a way. If you understand the wisdom outside the Jewish world, outside Torah, of course it's the same, but there is a difference, because if you keep all the rules, you keep all the laws in Hebrew, in Jewish, in Torah, then it's something else than if you don't, you can't, you can make the parallels, but not all the way. There's perspectives which are
so Yeda, you add another aspect that you talk about a Jewish chokhmah, Jewish wisdom or religious wisdom, and a general wisdom. So you add also that aspect here.
In a way, general,
yeah, but that are connected, but good. Let's go through also some of the other options that we heard. Benny wrote failing. Chokhmah is failing. I assume you mean learning from your failures, but and we have Florian who wrote the balance of knowledge acquired through experience, which is similar. You don't have to fail to learn from your experience. You can also succeed and by that improve your knowledge. Interesting. Jair, who write the wise people the people who understand the uncertainty of the world and spend every second worthwhile while living in the world. So we talk about not only about who's wise, but which kind of wisdom they should have, an approach to the world. Glenn, you write about being humble. Moshe David, you want to take the next ones?
We have Leora, knowledgeable and calm, and then use the word chokhmah, which we'll actually see soon, and we can discuss that. What does the word chokhmah mean in Hebrew? And Paula, a person that has knowledge, that is able to control, a person that is able to control his temper and act according to his knowledge, and think before he acts. So the ability to make mistakes and learn from them, and to accommodate knowledge that is during the time. So I'm just looking at all the answers here, and what strikes me very, very fast from all of them is that no one here said someone with a high IQ, right? In other words, the simple answer, well, there are people who are smart and there are people who are not smart. And then you have people who have more intellectual capacity, let's say, and some who have less. But from all of the answers here, and I'm looking at the other answers as well, you're all connecting it in a way to life experience, to learning from life, to learning from mistakes, how we act towards others is also coming through the different answers that I see here. And I think it's fascinating because we asked a simple question, right? What is wisdom? And then you're all really connecting it to something much deeper. So I feel very privileged in the Nordic Bet Midrash that we have, that we're looking at things in that way. And that we realize that yes.
What do you say? What did Chokhmah, Moshe David?
So there's one commentary that I like about the word chokhmah, that the same letters of chokhmah are koach ma. Koach ma meaning the power of what. And the what can be translated in many ways, but the power of curiosity. Someone who has curiosity to approach, and first of all, not think he knows everything, then maybe it requires something humble, like Glenn is saying, but also to very willing to learn. That way you can be in a situation in which you're just so stuck within your own world, you don't even notice what's happening around you. So I would say that a key to wisdom is both being humble as what am I, but also what is around me.
Right. Good.
So maybe let's take another question. I think I actually like this format. We're gonna, before we see the Mishnah, let's go down to another definition. Okay. What's the next one, Rav Yair? What is
Gibor?
how would we even translate a Gibor? Who is considered, I would say, strong and a hero? Who is a hero for you?
Yeah.
Who is a hero but that has strength?
Mighty. The word mighty is what. Yeah.
Okay, mighty, and we can also say
what is might? Who is a mighty person?
It's a person, not
not
what
God.
Would be
not the Almighty, our might level. Maybe a connection between the things, but that's again another layer.
Okay, so we're gonna take some more answers here.
Great answer, Sophie. My dad.
Okay, please answer. We need some more answers here. What is mighty?
The person who never loses hope. Beautiful. There's two answers to my father. Kisa said the same.
Okay, they put it in chat.
Great. King David. One who lives in the moment. Interesting. The one who manages to fight his own battles, challenges. Yes?
The IDF, the Israeli Defense, that's very interesting. I think it's actually very relevant, and we can ask ourselves, what is a mighty army? What would make an army mighty?
You know what? Maybe we might even go down to the question: is the IDF mighty? Let's see if we dare to open even that question. Maybe we'll try to do it later. Good. The person who can forgive the enemies. Daniel, you cheat. You write what we're going to learn from the Mishnah today. We're not allowed to cheat here.
I just remember.
Okay, so
Liana did the same. Yeah.
okay, so again, just looking at your answers here, I'd like to, Sophie, what is your dad for you? We had two people who said their dad. Why are you willing to share?
I'll try to share without crying as well. Like my dad, I don't like I don't know what to do without my dad. Like he means everything. Like he's the person I can be most vulnerable with. He's a person that will never judge me, to provide a good advice, while still having me in his mind instead of like viewing it from his own perspective. So I don't know which word to say in English, but rummelig, he's like really embracing. Yeah, a very important role model, and what I've learned from my dad is how I try to meet the world as well.
First of all, thank you for sharing. It's very special, but I want to take from what you're saying and sort of put it into why you're answering that is what might is, and what I'm hearing is that it's something which is stable, something which is there for you, something which is unmovable, and in that sense, it's mighty because it gives you that balance for you in wherever you are.
He's my rock.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So we have many answers here, but again, I'm just proud of all of your answers because we're not saying we're not looking for we didn't
strongest.
say the strongest, the most powerful, the one who is the strongest wrestler in the world, if we want to use that, or something like that. We have all of these ideas around us about what is powerful, Superman, or and here you're all talking again about something which is internal, something with someone with strong values under stressful situations. IDF is, maybe we'll have a discussion about that if we get there. Because I think there are elements of in any army which you can ask, what is the actual might and the power of an army? Is it the amount of planes, F-35s that you have? Is it the nuclear bomb? Or could you actually sometimes be weak even with the amount of power that you have? Because it might be that the inner might is something which is the most important. But okay. Let's go forward. We're gonna go. We have 4 definitions in the Mishnah. So the next one we will ask is
no, Moshe David, I don't think we should ask every one of them, because then we won't reach talk to the Mishnah. I think we have to dive into.
Okay. Okay. So
maybe we'll keep some of it to another time.
Okay, but it's great. I think so. I'll listen to you, Rav Yair. You're watching the clock, which is good because we want to we want to look at the Mishnah.
We share our traditions. I'm the Yekish and Rav Moshe David the Hasidish. So I look at the time, and Rav Moshe David looks on the content.
But I want to be with you when you're drinking on Purim.
It's so boring. I don't drink. Just want
knew
to
it.
letsek yedei chova.
I knew that would be the answer, and you get that from your own dad. It's yeah.
Yes. So just before we dive into the Mishnah, I want to say something about the rabbi we're going to learn about, because it's always good to have in front of us this figure. And the rabbi today, he's not mentioned a lot in the Mishnah, even though he's a very important Tanna, very important rabbi in the Mishnah time. He's called Ben Zoma. Many of us will remember him from the Haggadah Shel Pesach, where we say Ad Shedrasha Ben Zoma, the one who said that you should learn about going out of Egypt also at nights. But other than very few places, usually he's not mentioned by name. He's one of those who disappeared. The most famous Mishnah he has is the Mishnah we're going to study today, and the other part is that he's one of the famous four, who went into Pardes. It's something that we mentioned here, I think, a few times in the past. The story of the four rabbis who dived into the Pardes, which is the essence of the secrets of all of the world mysteries. I don't know how to call it differently. And the Mishnah tells us about these four rabbis who went in. The one who came in and one came in and died. The other came in and got hurt. The third got in and went to the other side. And the only one who came in and out with no problem. And Ben Zoma, unfortunately, not the one who went in and out with no problem. He's the one who went in and Ben Zoma is the one who goes in and dies. No, which one dies?
It's
Nifga. Yes, he's the one who gets in and got hurt. And we don't know exactly what that means, but it changes everything. We're not going to talk about this Mishnah. This is a story for a few sessions of studying, so we won't go into. But he's one of those who tried to touch the deepest question of the existence of the world, and he didn't manage to stay the same when he came out. Something happened to him. Do you want to add something more, Moshe David, about Ben Zoma?
Yeah, I'm going to try to not get pulled into the story, but it's interesting that the three out of the four are nameless, right? Don't actually have a first name, which is very strange, right? Acher because of a different reason, but the Ben Zoma, the Bartenura, the commentary on the Mishnah that we're going to see, he says his name was Shimon, but because he died when he was young, he had opened himself up to the secrets too early, and he ended up dying also when he was young, and not only got not in this story that Rav Jair said, but apparently he died young, or maybe was just mentally ill. But because this happened when he was young, he was not properly ordained. And the only rabbis that are mentioned by name in the Mishnah are those who had proper ordination, because it's passed down from rabbi to the next rabbi. And therefore, because he didn't have a certificate. But I would also say on the other end that despite the fact of what he did, his teachings were so important that he's still mentioned, and he has this Mishnah, and he's an important part of the lineage, even though he didn't get the circuits or the proper ordination.
The Mishnah even talks about him. Said Mishemet Ben Zoma met Batlu Darshanim. When he died, there were no longer people who could properly interpret the text. I don't know how you would say Darshanim, but he was such the last of his era of these people, and after that we had no one like him.
So I would say that if we want to learn about wisdom, then Ben Zoma is a good person to hear what he teaches us about what does it mean to be wise, because he was wise enough that even though he died at a young age, here we are 1800 years later and learning from him. So apparently he was wise enough to make an impact. So let's see what he says. What does it mean?
Yes.
Let's see his Mishnah.
If you want me to share, I need you to give me permission, Moshe David.
Yes, 1 second. Yeah, it should be okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Good. So, Ben Zoma said, "Who is wise? He who learns from every man. As it is said, from all who taught me have I gained understanding. Mikol melamdai hiskalti." That's the first one. Second, who is mighty? He who subdues his evil inclination. As it is said, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit than he that takes a city. The last two, who is rich? He who rejoices in his lot. As it said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy, and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world, and you shall prosper in the world to come. And the last one, who is he that is honored? He who honors his fellow human being. As it is said, for I honor those that honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored. Yeah, so I'll let it think a bit. Now, Moshe David, who is wise?
Well, I'm thinking in terms of why is it that we can say many things about wisdom, but usually when we think about wisdom, even with all that was said here, we think about knowledge or having a large, spectrum of knowledge. How much do I know? But here we're not talking about. But I think the Mishnah is, Ben Zoma is teaching us how do you reach a point in which you actually have a deeper understanding of life. And in that he says, he who learns from every man, which is a bit surprising, because is that true? In other words, do I actually think that every single person is someone that I learn from? And I think that as rabbis, we can ask that question as well, because right, we're supposed to be in a position of teaching. We're supposed to be in a position in which we are giving over the knowledge. But in that case, if we only give over, then we're not wise, because we're supposed to be at the receiving end as well. We're supposed to be learning. And I think when I read this passage of Ben Zoma, for me, it's almost like an instruction of how to walk the streets, I would say. How to approach people. How do I walk into a situation? Because if I really love the in the tefillah before Shema Yisrael every morning, that we talk about, there's a passage there that says that we wish to come close to God and to love the Torah and the mitzvot. And then it says the way to do this is lishmoa, lilmod, ulelamed, is to listen, to learn,
give us wisdom
and,
in our heart.
And to give us, yes, thank you, to give us wisdom in our heart. And how do we do that? Right? Lishmoa, lilmod, ulelamed, to listen, to learn, and to teach. So imagine what the university would look like if every professor walked into the room and he says, okay, what do you have to teach me today? Right? In other words, what are we learning as a group learning? What are we learning as a discussion? And that's what the Beit Midrash is about. Is about that you don't have in the yeshiva setting today, for example, in Haredi yeshivot, right, in the ultra-Orthodox and those who are learning, and in the religious circles, people are learning Torah all day. So maybe once a week, when you have a shiur klali, you will have a shiur that the head of the yeshiva will give, which is like a summary of all that has been learned all week, and everyone waits all week for that. But the rest of the time, it's chevruta. You're learning with each other, and I think it's an important message, as I said, of how do I walk into any situation in life. Am I a listener or am I a talker? Am I someone who's actually able to, and also I would say, even if someone wants advice, if you're not listening, you won't be able to give them the proper advice. So you have to be able to listen to the person who's speaking to you, and listen to the situation, understand the situation, before you actually begin teaching.
I want to say that I think there's a danger about what we learn today all the time, that we need to be careful with who do we get the knowledge from. Like, if there's one thing we learned today in the era of social media, is that we have to be extremely careful with where do we get our information and who do we listen to. In a way, it's this Mishnah talks directly to the time we live in, and can show also how not only complicated, but how dangerous it is to listen to whoever. And I want to say that I don't think that Ben Zalman in this sense is wrong to our generation. I'll give the example what can be wrong. We are today in the era of the AI, and I hope every one of you tried to send a question to ChatGPT, so you already know a bit about how does it work. But ChatGPT basically took all the knowledge in the world, like all the words that were said ever. So ChatGPT learned from everyone, regardless if it's the most clever person or the most idiot. They took all the knowledge from everyone and created answers from that, creating a machine that can answer out of all the knowledge that exists. And many times these answers looks very nice. Very many times they are the stupidest thing you could ever think about, and that is that shows both the good thing about wide knowledge and learning from everyone, but also the dangers of that. And the reason I want to say that, because I think I want to also specify the words he said. I'm quite sure that Ben Zalman doesn't want us to learn everything from every person. He says, he who learns from every man. And when we call Adam from every, it should be a man, it should be a person. It's not only from men. And he who learns from every person. And there's a difference between saying that you need to learn all the knowledge from all people, and saying you need to learn from every person, which means you should listen and take something from them. It doesn't mean you have to take what they say. But you're in a position that you are in a learning situation, even if the one who speaks to you will be stupid and someone who doesn't know very much. And we all know these people. There are people that you consider and say, "Oh my God, where does this come from?" I'm sure that every one of us had such an experience, seeing someone who really have no clue what they talk about, and they talk with lots of confidence about it. And yet, even in such a situation, there's something to learn from him. It might be a way he thinks. It might be a value that comes in. It doesn't mean that we have to take the knowledge from a person, but we have to be in a learning way of thinking. We are supposed to be in a place that we try to see what can we learn from this person, what we can learn from this situation. I think that is the direction that we can use that, and that takes back to today on how we need to be careful from learning. Not learning, which means get whatever people say, but think of them and understand where they are. Even learning what not to learn. That's also something which we should do. Florian, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I put it down because you said what I wanted to say. The fact that it is not about the piece of information that a person gives you. It's first of all to listen to not just one person, but to listen to everyone, and you can learn different things about that interaction, and not just retain that piece of information and take it for granted.
Now, my computer is stuck. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to just to share the beginning of a story. I'm watching the clock, Yair. I just want to share the beginning of a story, which is a fantastic example of how do you walk? How does one walk the way? So the story is from the Zohar, and I just brought the beginning of many similar stories that we have in the Zohar, which is the book of mysticism. And so I'll just read the beginning of the story. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar, his son, were walking along the path, and with them were walking Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yossi. As they were walking, they meet an older man, and who was holding in his arm a young boy. Rabbi Shimon picked up his eyes and saw him. Rabbi Shimon says to the old man, I see that your clothing, that your garments have overtaken you, that you come with them that they've, I would say, that they've come a long way with you. Who are you? He says to him, I'm a Jew. Rabbi Shimon says, and what is your land? The old man replies, I used to live among the monks, those who are in solitude in the desert, and I was learning Torah with them. And now I've decided to come to the place, to the city, to the settlement, to sit in the shadow of Hashem in these days of the 7th month. So we're talking about the month of Tishrei, and I'm not going to continue the story, though it's fascinating. But the reason that I brought this story was just think of the fact that the 4 mystical leaders of the generation who are learning Torah their entire lives, so much so that Rabbi Shimon goes off and learns in a cave with Rabbi Elazar for years upon years. But he's walking along the way, and an old man who's covered in very, ugly garments or something, they see them. And what does he have to say to him? Who are you? And what do you have to teach me is the next thing that he says. So when you walk the path of the world, in a sense that every single, and I take this in a spiritual aspect, that every single meeting that you have was something, you're supposed to meet whoever you meet, and that you're supposed to learn from whoever you meet with. And it could be a Jew or a non-Jew, because he says, who are you? And he says, I'm a Jew. It wasn't obvious. So in that sense, imagine walking the streets in which every single person that you see is someone who you're supposed to meet. You walk onto a train and you look at the person next to you and you ask yourself, wait, what am I supposed to learn from this person? And you walk into a community, you walk into the class and you say, okay, what do you have to say to me? So if we look at it from that spiritual aspect as well, then we could be missing a lot in life if we think we have the answers and we're stuck, or we're so stuck in our own world, or in the world of the perfect world of technology, like you were saying, Rav Yair, that we miss the interactions themselves. So just to summarize, Ben Zoma says, who is wise? He who learns from every man, and he brings the pasuk from Tehillim, the passage from Psalms, from all who taught me have I gained understanding, because it has to come from a place in which I understand that I have a lot to learn from the surroundings. Let's
The
go
beautiful
forward.
And I think also
Yes.
the beautiful thing about it of Moshe David is that the verse he brings from the Tehillim, in many ways, is supposed to say the opposite. It says, "Mikol melamdai hiskalti." From all my teachers, I became clever. So the Psalms talks about going to good teachers and learn from them. And he comes and takes it upside down and says, "Who are my teachers?" Every person. Like he takes the words that the wording that is originally in the Psalms goes about teachers and saying, but every person is my teacher in the direction, I think, as you say, from the story.
And we even have a halakha that anyone who has ever taught you anything in life is considered your teacher and must be respected as such.
Yeah.
So that I think it comes down to practical as well, because I would say either or. If you have people around you who've never taught you anything, you're not following this Mishnah. And if you have, if you're following this Mishnah, then everyone becomes your teacher, and therefore you have respect for everyone because they have taught you. Let's go forward.
Let's go to the mighty ones.
Yes.
Who is mighty? He who subdues his inclination. It says et yitzro. It doesn't say necessarily his evil inclination, but understandably his evil inclination. As it says, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit than he that takes a city. And of course, if we can start with a question, just like I said before, of the clash between what he says and his quotation. This is a very weird quotation because he asks, "Who is mighty?" He who subdues his evil inclination, and then he brings a quotation saying, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty." So the verse says that the mighty is, as we understand, the strong one, and so on. And he brings specifically the pasuk that says that mighty is not a good thing. It's better to be slow to anger than being mighty, and saying this is being mighty. The first part, not the word mighty. How do you explain this gap, Moshe David?
I think he's saying don't fall into the trap of what you think is as mighty, but rather he that is slow to anger is actually the mighty one. So he's translating it a bit different. He's translating the passage saying that he is slow to anger is mightier than the mighty. We could see it that way. But again, I think it goes back to what some of you were saying when we asked who is mighty, is that at the end, it doesn't matter from my perspective, evil inclination or inclination. But when we talk about addiction, for example, right? When you have the lack of your inner resources to stop you from following something that you know that you should, or if you know how to stop yourself from going. So it really doesn't matter if it's an inclination or an evil inclination. In other words, if I'm doing something evil, or if I promise myself I won't waste an hour, I'm not going to waste another 3 hours on social media. So that's also an inclination, and I have to have the strength, the inner power to stand up against it. So once I have that, then I will also have the physical power as well. Because at the end of the day, the physical power is only useful if I have the inner resources to use it. So it begins from the inner and remains in the inner. But when we think of the examples of who is considered a gibor, right, in Tanakh, so right.
We had one example in the chat.
Yeah.
Moshe David. One of the people wrote when we said who is gibor. One wrote King David as one of the examples. I think also if we ask here about, do you remember other mighty people in the Jewish history, Giborim? Who would you say? Anyone?
Well, who is considered the mighty one?
Moses.
I don't remember the talking about Moses as a mighty.
He's a
Either the
leader.
weak
King
one.
David?
This is how people. What, Florian?
Yeah,
King
yeah.
David?
Yes, King David. We
Kings.
mentioned he's definitely one of the Giborim.
Aaron.
I think that when
Aaron.
If we give you a hint, anyone remember a story
Joseph
that has
or
to
Joseph.
do with the Plishtim and a woman by the name of Delilah? Yes, Florian, you picked up your hand. No?
no one dares now.
Okay. So we
I can
have
tell you that if you
Shimshon.
ask in the streets in Israel, any kid, who is the most famous Jewish superhero? Every like in Jewish history in the past, basically 90% of the people will say Samson, Shimshon, and even he has in his name Shimshon Hagibor, Samson the Mighty. That's his name. And in many ways, when we think of his image, it's exactly the image of someone who doesn't subdue his inclination. He is very fast to become angry. He acts in revenge. He acts out of so many times. He's very much into beautiful women, and that gives him also lots of problems. He goes to so he's definitely a man who is. I can't think of anyone in the prophets that is more act according to his inclination. I'm not saying evil inclination, but the things he doesn't control his emotions so much. So it's I find it hard. Like Ben Tomah goes and he knows that we have these talks about the mighty, and he goes directly against this. Maybe this is what he does, but it's a weird thing. Like we can't take it as granted because we all know there are Giborim, there are people who are very strong. So how can we go when we have such a rich Jewish tradition with superheroes and talk about the one who subdues his inclination? Do you have a good answer to that?
Well, in the end, it's not about the hero. At the end, Pirkei Avot is trying to teach us all how to live our lives. And even King David, right, that we mentioned. So you have the one story of King David standing against Goliath, but the fact that he serves as a model for us all is because he takes us into the depths of the emotional journey and places that he goes through in his life and expresses it in words that we can really connect to. So you have one action of Shimshon that becomes the Gibor, in which he, uses his physical strength. But I agree that otherwise, that was very helpful. It's like we were saying before, an F-35 or the best, tank out there that can be helpful. But at the end of the day, it's the one who's driving the tank, or it's the one who's driving the army or leading the army. And I don't think we have time to go into at all to a discussion about the IDF, which came up before. But I would say that at the end, the strength of an army is judged by its inner strength, and that also the ethical and the moral are what I would say the eyes of the world are upon Israel, for good or for bad, and with in an open way or in a fake way. But at the end of the day, there's a question of the ethics and the morals that we stand for, that we have brought to the world. And that's a good thing. And then that is a source of inner strength. And when I speak to many of my friends who come out daily and from the fighting in from combat in Gaza and then go back, so there's a very deep sense of an inner strength which comes from the togetherness of Am Yisrael, which we've talked about many times, but also that it's very important to keep the ethical and the moral, because as you said, Rav Yair, it's a very slippery, right, slide to fall down when you have revenge and you have emotions, and then you can end up losing that ethical and that inner strength of, and in that case, when we look at the sense of strength, it's actually telling us to not do rather than to do in many cases. Many times strength is how much can you do, right, externally, and here it's telling us actually, what do you not do? And if you don't know whether you should do it, maybe you shouldn't, in terms of ethics and morals and the inner strength.
I think that is a part of what I felt from the first second in this war. There was one thing that really disturbed me, that all this war started as a reaction, and doing it as a reaction is almost always a dangerous thing, because if you only react to what happens, then you fall into emotion while you're supposed to be in strategy and doing the right thing because it's the right thing, and because you protect life, or because or different other reasons. There are many reasons to kill all of Hamas leaders, but doing it right after they attacked us, that goes as a suddenly we stop think. We say, well, we have to react, which means we don't think. And this is something I'm not saying that to criticize the fact that we need that the fight needs to be done and such, but the way of thinking. Do we stop ourselves and think? Are we reacting? Are we acting now from a position of being hurt, of revenge, or are we acting because there's something we need to gain? And that's the very I would say I met a few weeks ago. We had an admiral from the one who was the head of Shin Bet. He was in Denmark and visited Ami Ayalon. He was the head of Shin Bet and an admiral in the army, and he and we talked about the war, and he said that the biggest mistake we do in Israel right now is that we don't learn from Edu Gibor Kovesh et Yitzro, that we need to think very clearly. We have to control our emotions, and we should be more in that place to accomplish our goals. He doesn't say that he's someone who killed enemies with his bare hands, and it's not someone who he was afraid of conflicts or such. He's not like me. It's for me. I'm easy to say, but he knows the real fighting. But even though he said this is something that really disturbed me in the way we do it, we need to be more clear in the head when we do the thing, to make sure we are not. We learn from the Jewish tradition, and he quoted exactly this sentence of how we should have, which approach we should have.
Well, the fact that the head of the Shin Bet is quoting Pirkei Avot in itself is nice. Definitely nice. It's nice to hear. But in that sense, we had a few in the chat that about Yosef, which definitely I think that's one of the utmost moments of Gvura, in which he's first of all that he has the inclination of the woman who's trying to lure him, as you said, but also the fact that he stands there in the ultimate moment where he can take out his envy on his brothers without them even knowing it, and he has that inner power, so much so that they don't even believe it. They think that he's just doing it for his father's sense. But we won't go into all of the Genesis. The story.
I really feel we have to touch also the next one, because we're not going back to this Mishnah, and I think there's also a lot to learn from to our world today from the next sentence. So if we may also talk about who is rich. And of course, who is rich is not Elon Musk and not Mark Zuckerberg and not any of all these. Who is rich? He who rejoices in his lot. As it said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy, and you shall prosper. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the Mishnah. I think I mentioned it so many times in different sermons in the synagogue. Because this goes exactly against our society today. When we talk about the economy, the very essence of our economy today, not only in the past about taking as much as we can, but our economy that is built on shopping that focuses on the things you lack, like that by buying new things you will like your happiness will be dependent, your richness, your happiness will be dependent on consuming, which means it's the focus is the thing you don't have. This is the focus. How can you reach richness? So every rich person can tell you that this is so correct, that you some aspects of life might be more convenient when you have lots of money, but you're definitely not happier, and you're not richer, because what happened when you the exact opposite when you when we today try to be rich, it's about trying to get more. But when you start this quest for getting more, there's always more to get. Like there's never, when you start in this direction of trying to get more as much as you can, then it will be guaranteed that you will never become rich. You will always think of, as I mentioned, some of the richest people on earth today. Think of all the columns in the newspaper that are focusing on who is richer, who's number one, who's number two, number three, in the competition, which is so stupid. Like they all have much more money than any person can use in 1,000 years of living, much more than that. Like there's no one can use some. They have enough for their children, children, to hundreds generations in front. They don't have, like, the money has no meaning, and still there's a huge competition. Like, what do you care if you have $200 billion or $203 billion? It's an absurd, and it still there's a force to drive the world, and I think this is maybe the sentence that goes directly against the American what's called the American Constitution, right? The American Constitution that talks about the very the basic rights that people are born with, and one of them is the pursuit for happiness, which I think is the symbol of the exact opposite of he who rejoices in his lot. Because the pursuit of happiness means you continuously need to try to get something. Pursue. You are in a quest. You are all the time which will guarantee that you will never get there. You will taste, maybe you have a few tastes in the way, but you never get to that place. Well, Ben Zoma comes in here and says, do you really want to be rich? If you enjoy what you have, you will never be poor, regardless how much you have.
And that's because, very simply, that richness cannot be taken from you, whereas anything external can. There's a famous parable of it's well known in different places, but it's South American, I believe, in Central America, about the fisherman parable, in which the businessman comes and he meets a fisherman by the dock, and he tries to teach him the trade of commerce. And he says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I fish, and then I fish, 5 fish. And he says, that's amazing. How much time does it take you? Then he says, well, I can help you do it better. But he says, but why? Because what do you do with your fish? I take it back to my family. And then what do? We sit for dinner. And then what do? I read my children books. And then what do you do? And then he ends up in saying that he has everything that he needs. And then basically anything that the businessman will offer him is taking everything that he has away from him. And the businessman is he's so struck by this that he realizes that everything he has to offer the fisherman is what the fisherman is doing right now, sitting by the water with the fishing rod and enjoying life. So you can look up, there's different versions of this parable, but it's very simple, right? The message is very simple. That when we run and run and run after what we're taught is supposed to give us happiness, at the end of the day, it's much more simpler. It's a simpler thing in life. But we have the last sentence of just to touch upon it, of the Mishnah, which fits in beautifully with the other 3. And just to finish the Mishnah, so we talked about, right?
Who is he that is honored?
So we talked about richness, but then who is he that is honored? And it's quite a paradox, because those who wish for honor can do everything in the world to get the honor, but at the end they might have everything honorable, but they won't have respect. They won't have the real respect. You can have the degree, you can have the car, you can have it connects to the last one, right? You can do everything you can, but you cannot force people to respect you. And at the end of the day, someone who wants to be honored has to honor others. And if you give others respect, then you'll be respected. And that is something that others will be able to feel truly. It's not something that you would ever be able to do externally. So who is he that is honored? He who honors his fellow human beings, that as it is said, for I honor those that honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored. So you have many, many examples throughout history of those who wanted to be honored, but at the end they were not, and they were not respected in this life or afterwards, or 100 years later. Who is actually that who remains respected? And it goes back to the first passage that we saw in the Mishnah. It comes from how do you approach, how do you interact, do you have true respect for others? Do you, if others feel that you're meeting them in order to learn from them, then they'll respect the space that you're giving it. And it's true in I would say this Mishnah is something that we could learn every single morning and take as a guide for life, of how to live our lives both in happiness and respect. And if everyone in society did this, at the end it says human beings, it's not only Jewish, right? If a human society lived with this Mishnah, we would have a very beautiful world. And I think
maybe
less,
maybe with less gadgets.
Less gadgets, less power, less struggle, less negative energy, all of that for sure. And I at least really enjoyed that we started off this show with a good example of learning from all of you, and learning from and this is what the Beit Midrash is about, right? It's about learning from each other, and being able to listen to each other and listen to the differences as well. That it's okay. I don't have to be embarrassed also to share, because if the person is listening and respects me, then why am I embarrassed to share something? It's my intuitive knowledge that I'm sharing, or something that I learned. I should never be embarrassed to share, and the other person should be open to listening. So this is like the model that this Mishnah has given us today. So thank you all for sharing. It was a good experience, and thank you, Rabbi Yair, for learning with me tonight. And
thank you, Moshe David, and all of you.
Important to be a mensch. Okay, we're going to finish with that.
Amen to that.
Important to be a mensch. And a mensch is basically, I would say, what is a mensch? everything that we learned today, right? So if we just follow this Mishnah as a model for life, then hopefully we'll be mentally right. We'll act in a proper way to each other.
And remember that we're all human beings. So the Mishnah gives us a direction. If we don't follow it 100% of the time, all the time, be nice to yourself too, and don't feel, oh, that's bad because I'm not a good enough person. We all learn that we can wish to go to that direction, be inspired by it. Not necessarily it means that if we're not there yet, that we're not good enough. You are great.
Thank you, Rav Yair. Laila Tov to everyone.
Yeah, תודה רבה.
תודה רבה. Thank you.
לילה
לילה
טוב.
טוב.
Thank you.